Right, so these are some of the elements here that are existing already. So there's like a pepper and some other bits in there, but I'm going to redraw those as we go, and then I'm going to finish the pattern later or tomorrow morning, and then pop it on to 52 patterns a year from there. So that's what we'll be doing today. There will be quite a bit of usage of plugins in here. In fact, if I just go ahead actually and just reset my interface to its normal working way, recording something or getting set to record something else earlier using the default workspace from Illustrator. There will be quite a bit of plugin stuff in this one, a few different things I want you to see, because as I was drawing elements yesterday and using them, let me just bring a couple of these things on so they're easier for you to see. Let's go ahead and bring these in. These are the things I'm going to redraw anyway, but so there were just a few things in here, where I used some plugins, especially over here, where I used some plugins. I thought, do you know what? I'm going to change tomorrow, because today we were going to be doing something different. I thought I'm going to change tomorrow and just include this content in there because I think it's worthwhile seeing. So there'll be some sketches that I'm going to bring in shortly into the other document. And just here in this can, if I zoom in on the can, I've actually got it inside of the other file as well. In fact, let me just pop back to that file. I'm just going to rearrange those two things there inside the window. So of course, probably down to the work of Andy Warhol, Campbell's soup is an easy thing to show that you're dealing with soup. So I've drawn something that is based on that kind of soup, loosely based on there. So I've drawn a shape in the middle and then a dividing line. There's no colour involved in here. I've created something that looks a little bit like Campbell's, but you couldn't absolutely testify to it in court. Is that Campbell's? Well, it could be, but it could also be a bunch of other things as well. So I'm not infringing that. And even the word soup, I actually designed how that was going to look just there. So I changed how that was going to appear. So it possibly wasn't soup. You can see there's a bit of a double curve in there as well, just to be on the safe side, Tony Warhol. No. But anyway, that's one of the things I've got in there. And I drew this in a couple of different ways. So I'm going to use both of those approaches. And I might still yet make a change to the way I've drawn the other things. But for now, this is fine. So I thought to warm up with, I'd create a brush or two here that I might use. I'm going to create a couple with profiles. I'm going to create a couple just using straightforward paths. So I'm going to draw a line here with the line tool. Let's zoom in on that line. Now at the moment it doesn't have any appearance, so let's just give it a bit of a default appearance. Then I'm going to get the warp tool. Shift R will get me through to that sort of territory. Here we are. Here's the warp tool there, like so. I'm sure that icon's changed. I'm sure it didn't look like that before. But anyway, I can change the brush size for that by holding down the Option key and the Shift key to change it from the center. Of course, if I don't want it to be completely circular, then I can go ahead and just release the Shift key. But I want to kind of keep it circular just here. Then I'm going to just pull some of this stuff around. Now in doing this, it will generate some extra points in here. I might pull a couple of those down and kind of across a bit. I'm trying to bend them in ways that really shouldn't be bent, but doing it anyway. There we go. And you'll notice that I've kept the ends. I've kind of left those alone. So what I'm going to do with these is I'm actually going to use the average command here. Now, it wouldn't be the first time I've done this the wrong way around because it's such a thing you do so infrequently. But Option Command J, that would be Alt Control J on Windows to get to that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to average them vertically like so. Okay, so what that will do is that will bring them, and there you go, I've done it the wrong way around. So I'll do that again, Option Command J, horizontally. I told you I quite often do it the wrong way around. Now what that's done is it's actually aligned all of the points there. Okay, so they are vertically in the same, or they're in the same plane. Let me just do Command Y here. And if you look carefully, you can see all of the points there do indeed line up, but the control handles from the paths and so on, okay, they're kind of staying as they are. Yeah, so they're still making these long curves. In fact, we've got a bit of a loop there. Don't know if I actually want that. So that's one place. If I switch to the direct selection tool, where I might actually rein that in. In fact, I might even remove that point from there. So I'm going to switch to the pen tool and just go ahead and click just to remove that point. So this control handle now resolves itself with the control handle over there. Okay, now maybe I want to bring that down a bit, maybe I don't, who knows. But the main thing is here is I'm keeping these things in line. Okay, that's kind of cool like that. And I might ordinarily do 2 or 3 of those. In fact, it wouldn't hurt to do a couple more, because that way you see the process again. I'll just get a couple more lines out there. It's just Option drag a copy of that down. Go to the first one, then Shift R for that warp tool. This time I'm just going to kind of move that around a bit like so. Do that slightly differently. Hold down the Command key here and get the next one. This time I might force that a bit further. Okay, like so, something like that. Then with each of those, switching to the selection tool. So just Option Command J for each one of those. Okay, and horizontal like so. Now this time I'm going to leave the crossovers in there. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to take the crossover out of that one. So let me just switch to the direct selection tool and see where we are with that. I'm going to switch to the pencil tool actually and just redraw that curve like so. I'm then going to hold down or select it again because I've got mine set to deselect when it's used. I'm just going to hold down the Option key just to smooth that out. So that's an option I've got set with the pencil tool. Option key, it would say Alt on Windows. Toggles to smooth tool. It saves you from going and picking up another tool from the toolbox. So that one's slightly smoother. Just there, kind of like that. I might smooth that out still further, I'm just going to hold down the Option key. I'm just going to make some brushes across here as I go. So when I say brushing across, it means I'm just passing it and just allowing that to smooth out. I'm going to switch to the pen tool and remove that point that's down here, because that's kind of interesting actually, that all of those points, of course I've messed with them, that's why, are no longer in line. So I'm just going to line those up. That's it, that's much better. So I'm then going to play with the weights of these. So I'm going to make this one slightly thicker, like so. There we go. This one, I'm going to make this one thinner. So 0.75 there for that one. And this one, I think I'm going to leave it as it is. Then I'm going to select all of those. I'm going to align them to the center like that. So vertically, they've all been aligned to the center. Now that I've got those things, I'm going to go to the brush panel and I'm going to add a new brush. I could, of course, drag the artwork in to do that. I'm going to make this an art brush. Okay, and hit OK. That will then launch, and I'm just going to call this Scribbler1. Just there like so. I'm going to keep a fixed width with the whole thing. I can change that if I want to. Stretch to fit the stroke length is exactly what I'd want it to do just there. Colorization, I'm going to change this to tints and shades, and I'm going to leave the key color at black because that kind of is what it is just there. Okay, I will hit OK, and that's done. Now I have that new brush. So the reason I've done that in that way, when you're sketching something out, let me switch to, I'm going to switch to a different tool here. I'm going to use Astute Graphics Dynamic Sketch tool. When you're sketching out, you might actually go ahead and try and find a line until you then define the line that you want, right? So that's one way of sketching. Let me just undo those steps just there. Okay, just to get rid of that. And so the brush that I've just created here is designed to emulate that sort of thing. So let's do a different approach. I'm going to move that off to the side because I might actually use it again. Let's choose a different approach to making this can. So I'm going to start out with a rectangle. I'll use the same approximate proportions here like so. Okay, so I'll do something like that, and then I'll go ahead and draw the other elements that I need. So I'll tap L for the ellipse tool here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I am going to hold down the Option key and draw outwards like so. So I'm totally eyeballing this. Yeah, something like that I think will work pretty well. That's not in 100 million miles away from the version on the other side. Let's just align those together like that. Cool. And I might actually get this shape here. I'm going to tap S for scale. I'm actually going to offset the center of this just slightly. So I'm just going to bring that down there, and then I'm going to Option click and then just scale that down uniformly like so. Something like that is good. Option key down, hit return, which is the same as using the copy there. It's not scaled as well as I wanted to. I forgot to do the other axis, but now I'm just going to draw this in and eyeball it. Another way I could have done this, by the way, let me just show you, is to offset the path. So if I wanted to go path, offset path, and bring that down, that would be another way I could approach this, and then mess with it from there, because it gives me, it's not an effect, so it gives me an actual path in there. So if I do -1.3 eyeballing it, that's just fine. Good. And then I could do that again. I've attached or created a keyboard shortcut for mine. The only thing is with that, look at that, it's going to make that very, very angular. Even if I say round, it's only on the mitre joins, so I'll skip that one for now. Okay, I'll get the ellipse tool and I'll just eyeball the last one in. So just scribble it because I want it to look sketch-like, or will want it to look sketch-like, something like that, and then just move that up a shade. Something in that region I think is pretty good. Let's make sure they're all aligned roughly. Okay, and then I just need to do a couple of other little bits here. So this largest shape, what I want to do is Option click or Option drag, Option drag that down. So I've got another copy here, groovy, like that. Now these two things here should be, with the line tool, theoretically very easy to join together, and as it happens they kind of are here, but that isn't always the case. So sometimes I will actually use a completely different tool. Okay, I'm going to select the two ellipses just here. I'm going to hold down Shift to get the shape builder tool, and then just remove the back end of that like so. While I'm here, if I just select everything, I could get rid of some other elements that I don't want in there. So I could just go ahead and get rid of these. Purposely targeting the strokes, so something like that is pretty good. Okay, and then I'm going to need these, well, in fact, if I grab all of those bits just there and then drag a copy down to the bottom, something like that is good. There we go. And then just remove what I don't want straight away. So let's get rid of those bits because I don't want them. Okay, then we've got a little bit of pulling around to do just here. I'm just going to nudge those down just a tiny bit more. Okay, I think that just about does it. However, I'm just going to hold down shift here and bring that up, just because I really do want that to align with the shape there. Oh, I've got a small shape there that I need to actually get rid of. Yeah, it's going to be, see, that one's going to be tricky because I haven't truly, like I said to you earlier on about these things aligning. So let me just pull that out of the way and pull this bit out of the way. It means I've got extra work to do at the top now. I hadn't truly aligned to the places I wanted them to. Yeah, so they've moved slightly in that process, making that bit more difficult. So later on I'll perhaps show you another way we could do that. Now I'm going to have the same problem over on the other side, and it's just annoying. I'll show you how I would do it in reality. So there's a tool in the Astute Graphics toolset called the Tangent Line tool, and that does exactly that, and those things are bang on the tangents of those two circles. Yeah, so if I go ahead now and select the Shape Builder tool to remove that, I don't have to mess around for it to work properly. It's so annoying that it doesn't work the way it really should. I can get rid of some of these bits just here, so let's get rid of that line there, and let's get rid of, I'm going to get rid of that line just for the moment. Okay, now those bits aren't exactly in the right place just at the minute, but I can nudge them up like so, something like that. Oh, didn't get that bit there. There we go. Or alternately, now that you've seen it, use that. There we go. Super good. And I'll do it the same on that side because I didn't move the line up there either. So I need to do another thing here. What I'm going to do is just get that curve and option drag that up a little bit like so. So I'll kind of need that in there. And I'm going to select this path and this path on the side, and then just use the Shape Builder to get rid of all of the extra bits that I don't need. Just there, so just pull those away. Groovy. Now I'm not 100% happy with these corners here, but the good news is if I join them, so if I just get my direct selection tool and do those and Command J just to join those things together, and then repeat that over on the other side to join those, I can then go ahead and use the corner widgets to do that. So I'm just going to pick on that corner point there and shift click this corner point, so they'll both be changed in the same way. There we go. That works pretty well, I think, on there. Let's go ahead then and do the can. So I did this with a star to begin with, so I'm just going to come down to about the same point there. I'm going to use the arrow keys just to add in some star points. I don't want too many, because if this was going to be a sketch, then it wouldn't have too many things on it. There we go. Something like that I think is fine. I'll just tap for two more up. 1, 2. There we go. Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to hold down shift just to lock that in. And then once I've drawn it, I'm going to rotate it through 90 degrees. Or whatever, 45 degrees there. Right, okay. Then I need a line across here. So I'm going to just draw, whoops, I've got the wrong tool. I'll use another tool in which the line tool for it is L, and occasionally let's just get rid of that line just there. So we've got those two. That's groovy. This shape here, I basically drew it, so I'm going to, to save time, I'm just going to grab this one, okay, and bring that across, but I am going to modify what it's actually doing, so give me just a minute with that one. And this also, this was Cooper Black, and then I just messed around with it, but we'll just do the main can so you can see how that works. Now what I think I'm going to do here is just simply release this compound path, okay, then delete the and ungroup it. And so here I've then got just that shape there, like so. That's good. That's kind of cool. That works. Right, the only thing there, so this is warped around a bit. You can see that it's following a curve. Anyway, these two things here, right, this one, first of all, I'm just going to tap A because I want to round off all those sharp points just there. In fact, you know what? That's going to look a whole lot more attractive if I do that. And then I can select these end points here, switch to the scale tool, and then just bring that up until they meet that side. There we go. Groovy. And how I got to this state of affairs here is I used a warp. So I just went to Effect, Warp, and Arch. Oh, they're not grouped. So if I just group those, and Effect, Warp, and Arch, and then just change the bend so it went down until, and it was really, once it was close, was clicking inside the numeric field there, and then just either going down to increase the bend that way or up to decrease it until it looked like it kind of belonged in the place, which I think that for the purposes of now does look exactly like that. This thing here, I'm just going to copy that and drop that down like so, and once more Shift X just to turn that into just a path just there. Right, so I've got all of those things. They're all pretty much in the right place. So the brush that I made at the beginning, this sketch brush, I could kind of click and it looks like, it really does look like I've scrawled it with biro, but it looks like I've scrawled it with biro whilst under the influence of something. So let me just undo that. Okay, I could, well actually, no, I'll apply it, but I'm going to go to the brush options here for that. So options of selected object, because maybe I want to make this as a tiny change. And if I bring down the scale here and turn on preview, there we go. So now I'm just doing the same thing. I'm clicking inside the field and using the arrow keys to move along until I think this kind of looks the way I want it to be. And let's say that's how I want it to be. And so now you can see I've got a nice sketch look, cream of barbed wire, pretty much. But I think that works pretty well. Actually, if I just went ahead and just made a copy of that, and then just made it much larger. Yeah, I'm then going to reapply the brush, and then I'm going to go to the options to that. So this time, if I dial that down to maybe like 10%, just there. Now at first, but now I'm increasing it quite a bit more. And there we go. You can see how now that actually does start to look like you've kind of sketched it in biro. You've made light strokes to begin with to find the shape, and then you've made them slightly thicker in the places where the shape is going to stick, for want of a better term. And then to define that shape, you've gone ahead and drawn those bits in there. So there you go. That's how you can create a sketch look. Anyway, by creating a brush like that. Doesn't have to be that complicated. The doesn't have to be super complicated at all. Yeah, just something like that. In fact, I like that so much I'm going to keep it. So I'm just going to do a quick save of that out onto the desktop. There we go. Something like that is good. Perfect. Okay, if you ever want to amend the paths that work with the brush, by the way, you can always drag the brush out onto the artwork. That gives you a group like so, which you can ungroup. Yeah, and let's just say I thought, well, you know what, this dark line works, but this line here is too complicated. I can bring those two things together. Let's just align those together. If I wanted to overwrite the existing brush, I could hold down the Option key and drop it onto there. It will just confirm a few things on it. Do I want to apply it to the existing strokes? And there you go, it overwrites those things. Now, as it happens, I'd rather just make a new brush. So if I drag that in and make it an art brush, Scribbler 2. Groovy. Right, let's do this. Something else I could do here. Now, I do need to just expand the appearance of that. So I'm going to create a shortcut for that. Okay. So if I wanted to add color into this, there would be nothing to stop me from turning this into a live paint group and then getting my colors fixed. So let's just do something like that. You can see how quickly we could color that up, and if there is a sound going on, because I possibly don't know at the moment, it would be the sound of my lawyers readying their paperwork for the doubtless oncoming stuff that would go along with it. So that's fine. That would actually be on top, so it's a highlight. There we go. And let's go into the side just here, and then grab that one and also drop that there. And of course, let's not forget the kind of white color in those two places as well. You can see how quick that is. Now I'm going to keep that because my pattern isn't set on just having line. At the moment it kind of looks that way, and it may well be that way, but I did think about just adding in some color with the soup. However, the minute you do that bit, I mean, if I added a little blue ribbon in there as well, then I would definitely be in cease and desist letter territory from that. But at the moment, you could say it's a generic can of soup from there. Right, because I've done that, what I'm going to do is create another new document here. So I'm using the shortcut Option Command N, Alt Control N to create me another document with the same from the same preset that I used before. And let's go ahead and switch the drawing mode to draw behind. This is just my own personal preference. You don't have to do it that way. You can it's just my own preference. I just don't like drawing on layers with red key lines, and I don't know why, but there you go. All right, so I'm going to bring in some images. So Shift Command P, and I've got two files that I want to bring in, three files that I want to bring in. So let's start there and do that. Oh no, that one, Command key down, and that one, and that one. There we go, that's great. I'm going to bring those in, and I'm just going to click and place those. So these are from my working sketchbook, the current working sketchbook, like so. I sat and drew the ingredients for some soup. Okay. And so let's go ahead and double click that layer, call this sketches, and make it a template layer, and then just move that down. Again, that's a bit too strong, so I'm just going to double click that and bring that down to 30%, just there for the dimming. Now I'm still in draw behind mode, so I want to switch to draw normal mode, Shift D to do that, because there's nothing selected in there. So these are the tasks. I need to draw these things for my patterns. These are the bits that I showed you earlier from the pattern. So these are the ones I drew earlier, because I need to do the pattern today. And here's my little background of elements that's going to go in and around the other elements. Okay, so I'm going to start off with this pepper. Now this time, mainly because I have a screen in front of me that I can draw on, I'm going to use the blob brush tool. I'm going to hit return to get my options just here. So this is set to 1 point at the moment. I think that's going to be fine. Set to pressure with a variation of 1 point. Well, we'll see how interesting that gets in just a second. And for fidelity, I've got it down to almost accurate. So there'll be a slight amount of smoothing applied to it. Now, do you know what? I'm going to just kind of middle that out just for now. And then I'm just going to start drawing some of these things in. So this says there's variation of 1 point. I'm hardly pressing at all here, then I'm pressing very hard, then I'm hardly pressing at all. You can see there's quite a lot of variation in that. Okay, so my camera is sat on top of my tablet. I need to change the size of that. So I'm just going to hit the right bracket key. If I just hit return again, this is the best way to resize things like this when you've got pressure on, because as you increase the size here, it automatically increases the pressure variation as well. So I can go ahead and draw. That's better. And I want to try and keep the same wobbly line quality as I had before in there. So I'm just drawing around like that. Ooh. Actually, I'm going to do that from right to left. There we go. Something like that. Cool. And just across. All this talk of food is making me hungry. I'm glad that it's dinner time when I've finished. I have a nice curry. I think Mrs. Harmon is preparing a Rogan Josh, I think. Shift H here because I want to rotate the artboard around. Then Shift B to get back to the blob brush. Just connecting with that there. Escape just to bring the artboard round. Now I scribbled all of these extra lines on this pepper. I don't think I want those actually on. I think I want to minimize this as much as possible here. So I'm just going to add in just a few little lines. Not that one though, because it's really poor. So just a handful, just to give it some kind of dimension, but not too much. What I might do is add a thin one just down there. Just here, because it's approaching an edge. There's too many. Don't think I want exactly the same thing there, so I'll bring one thing in. Right, let's turn the sketch off from the back. Yeah, I think that looks okay. So I'm going to select that. Now this is going to go through a little bit of a process now, which I'm going to show you. Let me just zoom out and move this to an area where there's nothing much else there. Let's go over here. Oh, in fact, go right the way over to the side. That'd be a good place to store these. Okay, so there's a couple of things here that really do need to change. So this shape here needs to move because it's not quite in the center or where I want it to be. In fact, if I grab all of those things, I'll save myself a lot of work. So let's bring that over. I'm just looking at the shape over all of that, and it would be, I think, nearer there than where it was, because these things do tend to grow in that way. So I'm going to rotate the artboard around again here, and I think if I can still, right, that one's connected to that one, so I'm going to turn my stylus over and just erase that part of the line, and just pan this down a bit. That's a weird bit of erasing just there. There we go. Let's get that. Shift B, so this will connect with this. Now I've got to try and just draw this bit in and along. I'm not worried if it's not exactly on the money, because you'll see the part of the process that it goes through in just a moment. And I'm going to come out with this one. That's pretty good. Just there. Okay. So first part of the process with it here is to kind of iron out things like that kink there. So there, I'm going to switch to the pencil tool. Okay, and I'll start off by holding down the option key, because I have that option selected in my options, as you've seen earlier on if you're watching from the beginning. So that does smooth that out. However, I think this line needs to get thinner as it goes in here. So I'm basically just redrawing that segment. There we go. Let's correct a couple of these other little bits here. Let's bring that one in. Ooh. Let's go and have a closer look at that. Okay, I saw where I went wrong there. That's better. Holding down the command key just to select this, and I think this would be nice if this sort of came in a bit thinner like that. Now I'll just smooth that out a bit just there. It's a random piece of art just there, so I'm just going to get rid of that. The result of one of the other processes. Okay, not sure about that bit there. I wonder if that makes me feel better if it goes over there. It does not, so I'm going to remove it. Yeah, and I think that's got some dimension to it. However, I do think it needs something at the top here, so I'm going to go ahead and just bring that in. Right, so that's too big. Let's go the other way around. Yeah, tiny bit just there maybe. No, get rid of that. Okay, so now I've got that. Oh, that stalk needs to change. Stalk, stem, whatever. And switch to the pencil tool again. So that bend doesn't look right. So just changing that. And then I'm going to do that just here. Every time I'm selecting these, by the way, I'm just switching to my selection tool temporarily by holding down the command key. And whenever I'm brushing quickly like this, it probably means I'm smoothing. Okay. Yeah. Right, now this is where this gets tricky in fixing this bit here, because I'm not happy about the overall weight of that stalk. I just think it should have a slightly lighter weight than everything else. Now you've seen how I've been working this so far by using the pencil tool and the smooth tool. This is one of the times where I would actually switch to one of my plugins. So this is the Reform tool from Astute Graphics. Now watch what happens here. When I click, I've got some end markers just here, which I'm going to move around to where I want to start the transformation of these lines, and also where I want it to stop. So I think I'm going to go to about there, and then I've got these markers that I can pull in like so. I can add additional ones if I need to. Now I do think that would have slightly more weight on the bottom, and just pull these out like so. That I'm getting much happier with. In fact, I think I'm going to move this marker up. You can see that it's very much like bending around a piece of wire. When I hit return, it reshapes that entire line for me. I can do that again if I select this path here, and it's got a lot of points in it. A lot of points. And let's just bring that in like so. It's got those overlaps just there, so I can actually stop it from doing that. I can do things with the markers. You can see here I can change things for how it deals with corners and so on, but there are a lot of points just there, a lot. So I'm going to hit return, then it's just going to cut these things. So it's made me a little group there, I think. Or has it? No, it hasn't. So I'm going to undo that. First of all, I'm going to get the pencil tool and just brush around that, just to get rid of those additional points. In fact, now I'm going to draw that bit in, just there, like that. This bit here, what a dog's dinner that is. Did I draw that? I mean, I did. Okay, cool. Now I want to reduce that a bit, so I'm just going to collect that. Both of those places are just fine. There we go. Look at that. Easy. Easy, easy, easy. So much easier than all of the overdrawing parts. Now I think that looks pretty good. So here's the next part of the process for this. I need to select the whole thing here. And first of all, I'm going to run a merge pathfinder on it. So that will merge areas of common colours. However, this doesn't solve my problem. Right, I've got a slight problem here. So my problem is, what I'd like to be able to do, if I just go ahead and change the fill colour for this, you can see what happens. All right, everything there is getting filled. It's seeing the shape in the middle as being another filled shape. So the solution to it is pretty straightforward. I mean, there are a couple of different ways I could do it, but basically what I'm going to do here is switch to the shape builder tool and then click in that large area there, and because they're all connected through, it's got rid of all of that stuff. Now if I go ahead and select it and change the color, I can make it whatever color I want, because what's going to happen with this is it's going to be white on a colored background and sometimes not white. So I'm going to want to change it. It'd be a good idea to start saving this as vegetables, because that's essentially what's going to be going into this document, and then we can start on the next one. So let's do this garlic just here, and again I'm going to do this one pretty much entirely with the blob brush tool. I'm going to keep it nice with a nice little bit of wobble in it, but not too much. There we go, something like that. Let's bring that down. There we go. We don't need too much in here to make those things work. Now, as it happens, this will need more line in it, because of course there is in the bulb itself a lot of line, and you will need some in there to make that work. This top just here, that's going to need to change, but for now we'll go ahead and just add in a couple of little bits there, and then just continue, oops a daisy, and then just add in a couple of little bits in there like so, just gentle like that. Okay, so the top here, that's going to be a really good use of that reform tool that I was showing you from Astute Graphics. So if I go to this point here, I'm going to bring that marker around like so. I'm just going to pull that down until I get the shape I want. And then I'm going to repeat that, just extending that marker slightly further on that side. So quick question, how many of you have the Astute Graphics plugins? How many of you have got them already? I'm just going to add another marker here. Bring that one out. I added 2 by mistake, but that's fine. Switching to the pencil tool, option key down, just to smooth out that little bit just there. Okay, let's go ahead and move this one off to the side into the vegetable tray. Just over here, there we go. And once again, so I'll use the panel here. Okay, so I'm going to use the merge pathfinder. Just there like so to start off with. Then I'm going to switch to the shape builder. So Shift M, option key down, click just there. And if I've done that correctly, I should be able to change the color of that like so. There we go, perfect. And I'll just make sure that that is all grouped together. It is perfect. That should be a byproduct of the shape builder. Let's do a couple that I haven't drawn yet in my vegetable tray, because as I showed earlier, there are quite a few of these things drawn. So there's like a courgette down here. Well, that's supposed to be a courgette. I might redraw that. Courgette there. Now I think I'm going to draw this leek, which is what that's meant to be, just there. So again here, let's actually have a look at another way of emulating that drawn thing. So going back to where I warmed up at the beginning by creating the sketch brush, I'm trying to work out how long that line would be. So it's going to be quite long. So I'm going to draw this. I'm getting some idea of context. I'm just imagining now that I'm drawing the length of the line around this main part of this leek here. I'm going to put a stroke on so you can actually see the stroke. Then I'm going to make it a bit wider, something like that. It's good. Then I'm going to switch to the width tool. So Shift W for that. I'll bring this up a little bit so it's easier for you to see. Here's a leek. Fennel, asparagus. Oh man, I didn't put any asparagus in there. Yeah, but anyway, this is a leek. With my width tool, actually I'm going to zoom right in on that. I'm going to double click at this point here, okay, just to kind of create a locking point there, and you'll see why. I'm going to go to the other end, do a similar deal just there. Then I'm going to zoom in again for this because it's going to be difficult to do otherwise. I'm going to narrow that bit down there, and I'm going to make it a bit narrower still over there. I'm going to widen it up a little bit just there, narrow it down just on one side. So for this I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key and just bring in that side a little bit like so, and I'll make this a bit wider. Now if I want that to actually go back to being the same as the other side, I can double click on it and then I can make these values the same. So if I do 0.856 just there, okay, like so, you can see now that that's equal. So that goes back out to equal. And so I'm just basically adding some variation along this path. I think I've got quite a bit going on in there now. Let's make that a bit wider, but move that along perhaps. I said wider and I meant narrow. Move that along there a little bit like so, and I'll make it a bit narrower just here, make it just a bit wider, and again asymmetrically just on one side. Alright, so I've created this nice interesting looking stroke. It was either a leek or a massive spring onion. Yeah, whichever way you want. It would have longer things in it. I actually went to the farm shop earlier on this afternoon and took a look at some leeks in the farm shop and thought, that's where I'm going wrong. I was drawing the things too long before. You might see it actually in one of the... I thought it might be in one of the sketches here. But anyway. Right, so I've drawn this interesting looking line. Okay, I'm now going to select that and add it as a new width profile. I'm going to call this veg draw. Veg draw. There we go. I mean, the main thing, it doesn't, for this particular thing, given the absence of colour, it's not really going to matter if you're seeing it as celery or a leek or a massive spring onion, because any of those could be used in soup, right? So the main thing is there'll be ingredients in the pattern for the soup, which you'll be able to check out tomorrow on Instagram. You'll be able to look at that and see the finished pattern. You're going to see me build some of the elements here, right? And then you'll see the finished pattern. Right, so I've drawn that wacky stroke. Let's go ahead then. I'm going to switch to the pencil tool here. I'm going to hit return. So that's what I've currently got, almost accurate but not quite. And then I'm going to draw some of these lines in. I'm going to choose a starting point, which will be that top right hand corner, as it were. And then I'm just going to make my way around like so. I slipped a little bit just then, so I'm going to have a weird sort of kink just here. So let's just fix that. There we go. That is just fine where it is. I'm going to overdraw here just a bit like that, and then I'm going to overdraw here just a bit like that, and keep on doing that. There we go. I think that will be fine. I'm going to select all of that lot, Shift M, just to get rid of the bits I don't want. Try not to get rid of the bits I do want. Okay, that's cool. So I think, ooh, what's going on there? Tiny point left over. And that one here is not working terribly well. That will be, if I just click on that, there's probably a control handle in there somewhere. There's an extra point. There we go. See that? And I could, if I wanted to, bend that control handle in, if I was drawing it like that. But anyway, let me just undo that, because that's not what I'm doing just at the moment. So while I've got those lines like so, they're not super satisfactory right now, but what I could do with some of these is go to the appearance panel and then select that stroke and duplicate it, then use the stroke options here to kind of flip that along its axis to turn around the actual shape. So then I've got two strokes being drawn on here. Maybe I could make one of them slightly wider, like so, and so you'll end up with this nice variation of line. While they're using the actual width tool, there's nothing, you can use the width preset as a starter point, yeah, and then just bring in these bits to get it to conform to the way you want it to be. Here you can delete a width point by targeting it. I'll just zoom in just here, okay, and targeting it and hitting delete, and it will go away. You can move them along, so you've got lots of options there to change the way that appears. As I say, they are entirely starting points, so command key down for that. Garlic looks rather unimpressive compared to how great it tastes. Oh, thank you. Oh, do you mean just generally, not just mine, just like garlic, real life garlic? There we go. Here, that is just a mess, that one. So I'd change that out for another profile. You can see there's one I used earlier. In fact, I might actually do that on this one here. And you can always switch profiles. So for example, whereas with this one here, which has 2 strokes on it, there's nothing to stop me from using a different profile there at all. And you can see how that's suddenly changed that whole look. There you go. But that's much closer to what I want. This one I'm going to change. Also, I'm going to use one of my earlier profiles. And in my own profiles, when they look like this at the end, so they're sort of like a bow tie, that's because that way they'll join up when they get back to the 0 point. I'm going to actually outline all of those. Now I've created a shortcut to do that. Yeah, so they should all be outlined just now. I know this one is. I'm a bit worried about those two. Oh, they are perfect. Okay, so again, running through that, I'm just going to use the Pathfinder here, path merge command. It's only taken one of those appearances, which is, I should have used expand on that, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. So that's all good. Those things are good to go. So I'll draw in all of those. Whoops-a-daisy. Shape builder tool, hello tone. Oh, haven't drawn in my little detail lines yet. I'll need those. So it's a good opportunity to do that. So Shift B for the blob brush tool. Again, I don't want too many of those, but there need to be enough to show that it's actually the leafy part of it, because that'll be the bit that gives it away. It's there. There we are. Man, that bit there's got to be changed. Look at that outline. There's a couple of different ways I could do that, but I'm going to switch to the pencil tool and just overdraw that bit. And also just redraw that connection. Oh, and there. Sloppy. There we go. Something like that. I don't think I need anything further down. I think that does the... Or does it? Or does it? Yeah, it's going to need a few things there. There we go. Groovy. Right, now for the shape builder tool. Option key held down. This time I'll have to go into all of the shapes here, so it's sometimes helpful to zoom in. Just there. That's groovy. And actually, if I come out of that now, it's not quite done the job for me. So I'll run that Pathfinder again, and then just double check with this, just to get rid of it. Small amount of effort. There we are. Quick color check, just to make sure it's going to change as it should. Yep. And then over to the veg drawer with it. Okay. It's not going to be any sort of scale or proportion with those things. They are going to be the way they are. These beans, or whatever they are, there's beans, peas and lentils in there. I'm actually going to grab those because I'll need them in a bit. I'm not going to redraw those because it's not very interesting to redraw. So I'll just take those over there because we'll need them shortly. Oh, the onion. The onion. So, once again, shape builder. I'm going to draw out a little bit here in like so. This is going to be the tricky bit really, because I want this to, I've purposely put in a stray line like so from the former elements of that. Nice big pressure on there. Making my way around like so. There we go, whole shape there. Now a lot thinner for the most part of that, deeper towards the bottom. Nice, and then this is again with the paper of the onion. As it were. Yeah, I didn't think that terminated as well as I wanted it to, so I'm going to bring that in. Just, oops, direct selection tool only, just to get that in. That will do the job from there. Smooth. And of course, really, I would need one or two on the other side as well. So let's carry on with that. And then I just need to kind of draw a few of these things just to suggest strings. I think if it's a mistake to draw all of the shape, however, I do think it needs more than I drew in there. I'm going to turn that background layer off a minute. Yeah, I think you can figure out that's an onion, right? Just drawing onions make your eyes water. Yes. It does. Now, if I wanted to be really crafty, I could just nick most of that and do the onion on the side, because I think it does need to have, I'm just using my trackpad here by the way to rotate this around, I think it does need to have another part there to show that it's a sliced onion. So just a quick update save just there. I think I'm actually going to switch colours just temporarily as well. Once again, my usual favourite to draw with a highly distinct colour. Now I'm purposely changing some of those shapes, and then what I need to do is try and do some of these parts here. There's too samey. Reason being that if I change my mind, then I can get rid of it. Well, now to make it slightly easier to visualize that, and so there's still some separation, just change that to a grey. I can see a couple of bits there that could perhaps do with changing. Yeah, like, because they're not following, these ones aren't following that same kind of contour. Because this one here is at a very, very different angle, I think that's the one that's causing the problems. I'm going to change that one out. I'm just going to basically draw like that with the pencil tool, and away it goes. This one here also. No, it was a mistake to remove that one. And that one, so it must be this one. Oh yeah, suddenly that's a lot better. So otherwise it runs the risk of starting to look a little bit like something made of timber. How are we doing for time? About 7 minutes. So the other thing that would need to change here as well, these things would need to move around because they've kind of got to be, they've got to show that they are concentric and not just, or suggest, not maybe show, but suggest. I'm going to switch to that Astute Graphics Reform tool just very quickly and just change only the parts I want to change here. It's just that bit there. Just reshape that down. Hit return. Done. Oof, you monkey. I'll switch to the pencil tool, Option key down. Just smooth that out. There we go. Yeah, I think that would work as a onion. So I'm going to grab all of these because they're a different color just at the moment and change that to black. Then grab these, and once again with my setup here, so first of all merge Pathfinder, so that brings all the things of a common color together. Yeah. Then shape builder tool, Shift M, Option key down, and just click in these areas and watch carefully for what's being removed. Switch back to the selection tool and then just a quick check. See, there's something wrong there because I could see where the problem is. Let's just undo that. Shape builder tool again. This little bit just here, just down at the back here. To get rid of that. Then it's showing me a common color just there, no question mark. There we go, perfect. That's doing exactly what I want it to do, because remember the idea with these is they are going to be white out of that thing. So I've got these layers turned off. I can't think, oh, I've got the potatoes to draw. That's what that's meant to be. That one there, not that one. Looks like a rock. This one looks like a potato. That one looks like a rock. What I want to do, first of all, I'm going to show you another Astute Graphics thing, which is gorgeous. I'm going to select these. So here, what I've got is I've got something that's meant to be a bit like a pea. something that's meant to be a bit sort of lentily, something that's sort of like a bean, and then there's another sort of bean under here. So you could sort of say this is sort of a kidney bean-ish. This is sort of haricot bean. This is like a lentil, and there's a pea. That's what I've drawn just there. Okay, I am going to copy those because I just want to keep those ones intact. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw a rectangle in square form that I'm going to suggest would be the shape of my pattern. Okay, so I've got my rectangle, my square there, which is going to form the basis of the pattern. And I'm going to make these slightly larger so it's easier for you to see. There we go. Okay, for the purposes of this, these will be much smaller in the pattern that you see. Anyway, right. So I'm selecting those four shapes, the four shapes that I've got there, and that square. This is the thing I want to show you. And this is called the space fill from Astute Graphics. Okay, and I am just going to hit this button, make, at the top there. And suddenly I have these things all over and filling that shape. Now for my pattern, I'd need to do a couple of other things to mess with this. Right, now I can randomize those again. You'll see the pattern will change every time I do that. So I've got a uniformity slider here which can determine how uniform or not the pattern is. You can see I've got a couple of collisions going on here. Actually, if I was building a pattern, that is kind of what I would want, because it gives me some things to move to join those things together. I can resize all of the art if I wanted to vary the size. If I just do that, resize to 100%, but vary the size there. So if I just say resize all of the art that's in there at the moment by 50%, yeah, but vary the size by 2 times, you can see now I get something that's much more interesting. More beans, Mr. Taggart. I don't actually get that one. Vary the rotation, so I can change the rotation here. I've got this set to 360 degrees. You can do it in steps. You can also vary the opacity, and I've got this multiplying, so I've got 54 copies in there. So I can just go ahead and randomize that to however I want. And then when I'm ready, I can just expand this piece of artwork. So many options. I know, but it's so good. You imagine if you were trying to arrange this yourself manually, Uma. Yeah. It would take a, I mean, you could do it, but it would take a while to get this. At least gets me, even if it doesn't do it, which it isn't doing at the moment the way I want it to be. So I'm just going to change the resize all thing just there. Oh, and reset my vary rotation. Right, so even if it got me to this particular point, yeah, if I went ahead then and said, I mean, there's more to this than you'd rather not imagine. We wouldn't. So if I go to pattern and make from that, oh, silly me. What I need to do first, really, for this to work properly, is I need to go to the space fill and expand it. So now that's just a group with those things in. I'm going to ungroup it. I'm going to get the edge rectangle there to remove it. Then I'd go object pattern make. I know it's past. I'll be out of the way in just a second. Okay, so object pattern make, and then this is where I'll actually start shifting stuff around. Right, so you can see that now I've got lots of options to play with here. Now it got me started beautifully, but I can just move things around to get them so they're pretty much, in fact I don't want that piece, I'm just going to delete it. Let's bring this lentil thing in there, and then I just start pulling these to different places, swapping them over until it starts to take on a uniform color. And by color I don't mean red, purple, whatever. I mean if I squint at it, yeah, or even zoom out, does it look kind of a uniform thing? Let me just turn off the dim copies thing there. Does it look, I'm looking for these gaps and how these gaps appear. because then I can just move things around to change those gaps. Maybe this one here, maybe I just want to rotate that one around like that, something like that is good, and just pull all these different things into place and start to see, you see that's beginning to work nicely just there. I've got pretty much a if I look at the whole thing, I've got pretty much a uniform thing there, so I could call that beans, for example, and then I've got that pattern added. If I draw anything else, so I'll draw a long rectangle just here and click to add my beans pattern. Nice, and there we go, that's it. Thanks everyone though. For now I've got to be on my way because stuff and all of that business, so see you soon, take care. Mwah.